My name's Johann Diaz, by the way, if I've not met you. Thank you for coming to this session. I actually want to talk about towards everything as a service, as opposed to, I think, what we had in the agenda, which was essentially doing more with less and improving service at the same time. I hope you'll forgive me, but I actually assume most of you are expert at doing more for less and improving service at the same time. Now, if you're not, come and see me after. But as this is the name of your game, I'm assuming you're good at that. So what I actually would like to do is talk a little bit about everything as a service and what that journey looks like. And the first thing to say is, I think we're at the dawn of a new era, okay? And it's one that I call the service revolution. And it's not just me who's saying that, if you think it is. In a survey that was done by Dell a few years ago, they surveyed 3,500 senior execs from organizations all across the globe and different industries. And 90% of them agreed that over the next 5 years, which is actually only up until 2022 or so, that they would start to deliver their product offerings as a service. So this is not new stuff, this is known about, and all your organizations and most organizations will actually be and should be working on this as a strategy. As I say, my name's Johann. Just by way of background, I would describe myself, I hope others might as well, as a bit of an evangelist, a strategist, a practitioner. So in an early career of 10 years, I've been kind of client-side work, ending up as COO of a small mobile comms company. So the world of operational technology that we all talked about earlier on, just before lunch, absolutely my world. But in those days, giving my game away, we did it without GPS, and we certainly did it without the internet. And I was running low-frequency navigation networks, high-frequency data networks, around the UK, but then we actually exported technology to other countries as well. So I know a lot about operational technology. Moved into the world then of freelance consulting and ran ITSM projects and programs for Diageo and BP and Vodafone and Unilever and various others. So did that for about 12 years. Got pulled back into large corporate by Capgemini, where I then headed up service management, service integration consulting in Cap for the UK. For 3 years or so, and then found our good friends at ServiceNow. And I think many of us had watched ServiceNow grow from nothing to what they were, and I was curious, and I wanted to find out more, and I enjoyed 2 years or so with ServiceNow. In the Inspire team, which if you don't know is kind of the customer exec advisory program, where we'd work with large customers, and really some of the stuff that you heard about this morning. How do you use and expand the capability of the platform in your organization? And since then, I've been freelance back again. So I think we call my career a bit of a portfolio career. But today, what I'd like to talk to you about then is what do we think everything as a service is today? What are the challenges for today and tomorrow that our organizations struggle with? And what are the benefits? Because clearly it's taking off. We all seem to like it and use it as consumers. So what are the benefits to both consumers and the organizations? Okay. If you want to tweet, please use service management and the hashtag that was on for Nowbox earlier on. Now, here's a test, and I won't ask you to put your hands up, but who remembers the day when the first video, do you remember videos? Oh, very good. The first video rental company launched in 1985 called Blockbuster, okay? 85, it doesn't feel like that long ago. Please, somebody tell me it wasn't that long ago, but I remember that, and they grew such that in the early 90s, they were valued at 8.4 billion. They were sold for 8.4 billion, okay? So meteoric growth, certainly at the time, in 15 years or so. But then new technologies come along, you see, and new technologies then were things like DVDs and the internet. And hey presto, this little organization called Netflix opened its online DVD rental store in '98, and the rest is history, okay? So we can see in a short period of time as a society, how we've taken on new technologies, and consequently, the services that our organisations are able to offer to us as consumers and the wider community have transformed considerably. So we've gone from renting videos, and I have to confess I remember going down to the video store and renting the video, to now everything entertainment as a service, right? On my little box, I can choose what I want to watch. I can binge watch even if I want to. And we did the same in lots of other parts of our community offerings. So buying records, I remember going down the record store. But now we just stream it, okay? So our world is transforming before our eyes. Eye care as a service. I mean, I get my contact lenses delivered on a monthly basis, and my solutions and everything else is wrapped in. It's a subscription-based model. Healthcare as a service, we've all probably touched some of that. Medications even can turn up at your doorstep. And many of us have probably used our banking apps for a long time. We've got parking as a service. We've got food as a service. We've got laundry as a service. And so it goes on. And even in the world of industry, air miles flown as a service has been long known by way of Rolls-Royce and how they sell their services, okay? Farming, how the world of IoT is truly opening up all parts of industry as well to being offering their product, what was product capability previously, as a service. So everything as a service is already part of our lives. We've been using it, consuming it. If I was skeptical, I might suggest that the service providers have been manipulating us for quite a while already. And actually, we're quite happy to take the predictions that either Amazon give us or Netflix gives us or whomever. And even our banking app might give us some predictions. So this is nothing new to us, but actually, we still talk about everything as a service, as a journey and a stage that we're going to get to. Well, maybe it's just a transformation journey along the way that is happening naturally. So, important to ask, but why is this thing called everything as a service important to us? Well, if we take it from our perspective, these are just a few, okay? These are just a few. Clearly, we can now just pay for what we use. How lovely is that? It's convenient. It's often a lower initial cash outlay. We can buy the outcome. Now hold on to that, okay? Because I think this is the nub of the issue. You actually buy the thing that you want. So I want food, preferably cooked for me. I can now call it up on my app and it gets delivered. All I have to do is eat. I don't think they've found yet eat as a service, but maybe that's going to come. It's easy to set up and use, usually. It enables sharing, so sharing the cost of something is easily done with mobile apps and such like. And it's fast, it's nearly instant, okay? So, you know, from a consumer perspective, you can see it, right? We're insatiable in our need and our desire because we understand what the mobile experience can now offer us as consumers. Now we take that into our organisations and the service providers that we use in our personal life. And so we should. But the expectations are high on organisations. But from an organisational perspective as well, there are many benefits. Not least, if you're now running a subscription-based model, you have the opportunity to be much more sticky, as we know. Okay? So your customer value over the lifetime is generally going to be higher, potentially higher. It's a faster time to market, often at reduced cost, because you can now start and try something before you go all in for something, right? But new technology is coming along. It gives you the increased speed and agility and operational efficiency. So there's a lot. And one interesting one there is what we call democratization of innovation. So you can stand up blockchain as a service and you can actually try it. And various organisations and various departments in an organisation can try it. It's not just now the technologists in an organisation. Anybody can do that. You just get your credit card out and suddenly it's online for you and you can start using it and consuming it and see what you can do with it. So the world of as a service, as enabled largely by internet and cloud and everything else, is a great opportunity for both us as consumers and us as organisations as well. But the poor old CXO, or any of us as IT leaders or technology leaders or business leaders, we're sitting there going, where do I start? It's not an easy thing, and you're balancing a lot of expectations and a lot of ambitions and dreams and hopes as well. Let's look at some of those. So from a customer perspective and a consumer perspective, we are, as I say, insatiable, because the minute we have something better, we now demand that of the other organisations that are serving us. Okay, so as soon as you get the next best thing, we are on to something else needs to better it. And that's rightly and understandably how our expectations are raised. But managing that from an organisational perspective, as we know, is extremely difficult. But it needs to be effortless. It needs to be multi-channel. It needs to be anytime, any place, anywhere. It needs to be seamless. And again, it needs to be fast and instant. Okay? Unreasonable? I don't know. You decide. From an organisational perspective now, there are real issues for us as organisations, right? Now, we manage two hats at least. And when we put that organisational hat on, and we've heard some of it this morning, the tougher challenges are that you're always being asked to do more with less. I would have talked about that, but you know how to do that, so that's good. Increased productivity, greater ability, reduced risk, continuous change. And you're expected to do all of this, all at the same time. And new technologies continue to disrupt our world. We are going into this world, we know it, where the blurring between human and robot is upon us. And I keep saying to my elder daughter, your generation is truly going to have to struggle with some key ethical issues. But this is where we're going. And it's going to continue to disrupt us, all the while we're struggling to adapt to the technologies that are still with us or coming up behind us. We've got new ones coming along all the time. Now, the opportunity, though, is that with new technologies, we can be thinking about the opportunities around new services. And I'm sure many of you in this room today, maybe this time next year or the year after or whenever, will be engaged in some of those new services. And you should be. You should be, because let me say, folks, you guys are expert in the world of service management, service expertise, service transformation, service.x. You are, right? Because this is the world that we have engaged in and perhaps been brought up in for many, many years. So actually all the great things that the IT industry and the technology industry has done for many years, we can now take to wider parts of the business and the organisation and to other communities. So you are expert, never forget that. And actually, I don't want to see some of you guys here at IT conferences. I'd rather see you at business service conferences or whatever it is. Take what you've got, please, take what you've got and take it out into the wider community, into other organisations, because we need that as a society, we need that. 42%, remember, of those 3,500 execs who were surveyed, 42% admit to, and I bet there's probably more who didn't admit to, fearing that they won't be in business in the next decade. And we see it all the time. We see it almost on a weekly, monthly basis. Some of our traditional organisations and businesses are going to the wall. They're being disrupted. And in case you don't think that's going to happen to you, and I'm sure none of you don't think it's going to happen to you, and forgive me for my financial services and particularly insurance company colleagues in the room, if you've not come across these guys, I hadn't done until I did this a few months ago, a company called Lemonade. They will be launching in the UK and Europe within this year, I think, is their timeline. But look at this, 90 seconds to get insured, 3 minutes to be paid. This chap, Brandon, and as it says there, if you read the bottom, his coat was stolen on a sub-zero Saturday night in downtown New York. He waited 6 days, hoping that it might turn up, and then he thought he needed to do something about it, and he takes out his phone, and he's going to engage with his insurance provider. It was towards Christmas, 5:43. The seconds are actually quite important. And he entered the details of his very expensive coat that he'd bought for just under $1,000 in New York. And sending a tweet would have actually taken longer, but he just took his mobile phone out. Took him just about a minute to speak into the camera, and he described what happened, and then he hit submit. And if you read the next, it's pretty amazing. 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, the AI Jim bot reviewed his claim, cross-referenced it against his policy, ran 18 anti-fraud algorithms, approved it, sent wiring instructions to his bank to transfer the money, and informed him of the good news. I thought that was pretty impressive. And that shows us what we can actually achieve. And actually now, as a customer, he's all over the wires kind of saying, this is amazing. This is truly amazing. Insurance often has been a grudge purchase, hasn't it? But when you get service like this, actually, it can turn into something better than that. So don't think that we won't be disrupted. It's there for all of us to heed the warnings. So big question, right? How do we, from an organisational perspective, navigate these storms that are upon us whilst we're transitioning essentially our whole business sometimes to a new way of working, to everything as a service? What does that actually mean for us? Well, you won't be surprised to hear me say this is not a techie thing. It's not only about the technology, of course. Whilst technology is at the heart of it, it has to be about something else, okay? And what I find is organisations, historically, they've put a lot of emphasis into customer experience initiatives, and as well they would, focused on the customer journey, how it's intuitive and human, the seamless engagement, the multi-channel experience, and all of those good things. But often, and I read about this, and even in digital transformation programs, why many of them fail is because they don't do the second part, which is transform the organisation underneath it. So what I might call service, F&F, which is efficiency and effectiveness. So to do that, having, as we were talking earlier on before the break, that end-to-end process view. You know, Phil was talking about the end-to-end process perspective. And again, so many organisations don't. They just see one part of the process and they try and manage it in silos. And you go, guys, your customer doesn't manage you in a silo, right? They simply go across your organisation. So when are you going to start acting as a seamless organisation? Because until you do, you won't be able to deliver great service. It's an obvious one. And let's face it, again, we've talked about it, over the last 20, 30 years, the fragmentation in business organisations through outsourcing has been massive. It's horrendous. And so we see the play, should I bring everything back in? And you go, well, maybe, but you shouldn't have to. So, you know, the world of everything as a service offers you the opportunity to bring to market new business models, but it demands new operating models, new ways of doing business. It demands the automated and orchestrated processes because you can't carry on doing more for less. Actually, you can't. You know, if some of the organisations that we now work in try to do more with even the resources it has today, it'll just implode. I guarantee it'll just implode. You can't keep turning more out. But the opportunity is that we're in the world of ecosystem and networks and partnerships, okay? So the value-adding partnerships, how do you bring them into the organisation? You know, Telco has done this brilliantly for many years. How do you actually go and find other service providers, knit them into the service offering that you're delivering via your mobile phone, and actually integrate them and make it look like a seamless organisation? That's what we're talking about. So you have to do both and. You have to do a top-down perspective as well as a bottom-up perspective. And I know we run many service improvement initiatives. I know Lee and your team do that. That's what you do. That's what you live, and that's fantastic. But if we don't have the top-down perspective, the strategic focus and vision as well, that says this as a business organisation is where we're going, and this is why we're doing it, and these are the outcomes that we're looking to drive, and let's put together our capability-driven transformation plan, then the initiatives can run into it. But often, again, I find organisations that don't. They've just got piecemeal bits of project work and service improvement initiatives going on, and you go, well, why are you doing that? What outcomes are you expecting? What strategy are you supporting in the business? And it's like, we thought it was a good thing to do. Oh my gosh. So, in driving towards everything as a service, the need, not even the opportunity, the need is to take that step back, okay? You have to be intentional in your transformation program, and it goes across the business. It's not just a technology one. So I would say, well, start with your service strategy. So and I would ask, and I did, I was with a large oil and gas company just before Christmas, and I'm working with them, and they want to do X. And I'm saying, well, somebody tell me who your customers are first, and what services you're actually delivering to your customers. And they might scrabble around a little bit and go, well, I think we're doing this. And then you ask, well, why? What need are you satisfying? What requirement are you fulfilling that the customer needs? And they're prepared to pay money for as well. It's important, that last bit, okay, that the customer wants to pay money. Now, this is why I say, and forgive me, and I always say it, but you keep coming back for more, which is it's not about IT. Can I just say that again? It's not about IT. It's not about technology. I don't care what technology you use to deliver the service to me. I only care about the service and the outcome that I get from it, and I'll pay you money for that. You can use whatever technology, whatever people, whatever processes, I don't care. Okay? It's only the service that is valuable to me, and I'll pay you money for that. Now remember that, okay? But ask yourself, step back and ask yourself, what are we doing? Who are we doing this for? Do they really want it? Is it still fit for purpose? Actually, should we be transforming some of the ways that we're doing it? And the organisation. I find, again, organisations, and I've heard it for so many years, that many organisations, the way they are structured, actually itself places limitations on frontline customer support teams, for example. Policies that are not customer friendly. Right? And all of these principles and practices, you've got organisational structures and decision matrices and leaders and bosses who must be involved in all sorts of decisions. Well, okay, but some of that doesn't actually lend itself to delivering great end-to-end service at the moment, in the moment that the customer is dealing with you. And remember, it is all about the customer's process. It's not actually about your process. I hope your processes map the customer's journey, because that's the obvious one, okay? So organisationally, it needs to change, and the structures need to change. Ourselves as people delivering service, working in organisations, how up to date and future-proof are we by way of our skill base? I was reading an article the other day, Amazon investing, if I got the numbers right, 700 million for something like 7,000 employees in upskilling them for just data science. What does data science actually mean? That's probably, and digital. And what does that mean? And actually, I asked my 21-year-old, what would you do if this thing in the palm of your hand doesn't work? Well, I don't know. I'll call you, Dad. And well, I'm sorry, but that doesn't work. That doesn't help, right? Because we actually have generations coming through behind us as well. Whilst you and I might be a little bit tech savvy and have an understanding of what might have gone wrong underneath and know who to call, the younger generations won't do that because they've never had to. They've just grown up with this thing in their hand. Everything is lived through this. So what are we going to do? How are we going to serve? How's the organisation going to serve an uneducated customer from the perspective of technology? who need to be thinking about these things. And we need to be upskilling our organisation for the whole world of machine learning and AI and everything that's with us today and is only going to broaden, okay? Data, we talked about data and the fundamental need for data structures and data models and all of those good things. But, you know, it's a multi-phased approach. You can't obviously bite it all off at the same time, okay? And you know, I've put together transformation maps when I was with ServiceNow and after as well. And it's all about, you know, building that case as well. And I loved Scott when he said, you know, you just got to keep going back to the board or whomever it is that you've presented and they've bought off the 3-5 year journey and just keep reminding them. You know, there's a phasing, and we're only in 2 years of a 3 to 5 year program here, and that's what it's all about. If you take some of this, and let's just see some of it. So service strategy I've talked about, but I want to say that each part of the organisation, again, and the strategy needs to be investigated, analysed, turned over, asked the nasty questions. If you watch a TED interview with Reed Hastings, who's one of the co-CEOs of Netflix, he says, easy to say when you're making a lot of money, I know, but through their whole organisation's journey to get to where they are today, speaks of the culture. He says that we consider it to be disloyal if any of our employees don't speak up when they think something's wrong. He actually goes to say he thinks it's disloyal if you don't do that. Now, I've worked for many organisations and I wouldn't say that that's been the culture of those organisations. Maybe I'm too old now, forgive me. But, you know, that is the culture of the organisation we need. It does frustrate me, and I know many, when you're engaged to do some great things, but actually you're not really empowered to do it. Because all decisions have to go one way or t'other, and you go, really, come on guys, you know, we're living in the 21st century now. So operations models, organisationally, you've got supplier models, everything needs to be reviewed and transformed if we're going to truly be able to leverage the benefits of as a service. I've talked about organisation, culture and leadership is a big thing, and you guys are leaders now, and you're going to be hopefully leading larger parts of the organisation over the coming 5 to 10 years, okay? Please think about that now. Please go get yourself trained. Please look outside of your box, because we need you to look outside the box in order to go and evangelise others to do the same. Huh? Data we talked about, you know, Keith and the team are experts at Lloyd's. Data is the fuel. We talk about this always, the fuel that organisations run on. But if you haven't got a data strategy in place, why not? You need to be. This is fundamental stuff. I couldn't go from a ServiceNow conference without talking about the technology, right? But, you know, I love ServiceNow. Why? Because it's a platform. And I do get very, very, very frustrated when people say, oh, well, that's the IT ticketing tool. Well, no, not really. It might be able to do some stuff within the world of IT, but it's just a platform. It's a great platform that you should be using across your organisation. In fact, I go so far as to say, for me, it's the heart of the enterprise. Because if, in very simplistic terms, I talk to people about, let me go with front end, CRM platforms, and everybody's got some of those. Back end, you've got loads of platforms, the ERPs, the finance, and everything else. You know, ServiceNow is the classic platform to join up your organisation. I really believe that. I really do. It's that heart, it's the engine of an organisation. And as Phil was demonstrating this morning, that's how you should be using it, and that's how your customers should be using it as well. I call it the controlling mind, because it could sit there and start to orchestrate and direct everything else that goes on underneath it. We might call it the platform of platforms, right? It will join up and can join up and should join up. And that's the only way you're going to deliver great end-to-end service, is it joins up everything that's going on. And it becomes that engine in the heart of the organisation to orchestrate everything. So, remember I'm talking about, for too long, organisations have worked on customer experience and expected great customer outcomes at the end of the day. Well, you've only done half of the work. Actually, you might have only done 20% of the work, because that's the engine of the organisation behind you. If that is not streamlined to deliver those services in the end-to-end manner that the customer walks through with you at the time of their choosing, in the way of their choosing, then you're going to fail. You're going to fail. I had it literally the other day. It was, I had ordered something, I think by way of a photo book online. And you get the usual email back to say, how's your experience? Well, my experience was pretty bad, because after 2 months it still hadn't arrived. But actually, the way they designed the system, it took no account of the fact that the base service that they were offering didn't actually work. It still said, well, how good was Phil on the phone with you? Well, why do I care how good he was? My photo book hadn't arrived. Okay? So, you know, this is not rocket science, but this is about joining up the organisation. There is front end, but there's the engine that needs to be streamlined as well. And many organisations haven't yet done that. So we talked about some of the benefits. When we truly harness some of this stuff, you know, it is about the delightful customer experience. There was a time when we used to talk about delighting the customer, and that's what we're talking about. Perhaps we've got so used to it with mobile application, but that's what we're doing, right? We are, and the opportunity with moving to everything as a service is that the customer doesn't have to worry about technology anymore or anything that's under the hood. They just can consume the service. But it has to be of high quality. Has to be of high quality. You know, it's the solutions to their problems. It's about experience, and then you build that stickiness, and that stickiness supports the ongoing relationship, the lifetime relationship. I've been with my bank ever since they opened, so that's now 25 years. And actually on the 25th anniversary, they phoned me. And I had an absolutely delightful conversation with the lady on the end of the phone. It was nothing to do. I didn't have to transact any business online or anything, but actually it made me feel good. It was a really good customer relationship that they have consistently delivered every time I've needed them. Now that's pretty impressive. And it's those types of services, it's those types of relationships that we want, and that as we transition to everything as a service become more possible. From an organisational perspective, your operation needs to be truly outstanding, truly outstanding. And we've heard this morning of what I think are some outstanding initiatives that are running, and some great transformations that are truly happening in some of our biggest, oldest institutions, right? And that's just delightful, because, you know, there's a group of you guys who get the vision, and you've been able to put together the investment case and convince them. And again, the repeating of that message is really important, because at the end of the year, everybody goes, well, what have you actually achieved? And am I going to give you the money for next year? And so on and so forth. But, you know, continually reminding people of what the vision is, where we're going, why we're doing it, and what we've achieved so far along the way is important by way of an evangelical perspective. And that's what you're doing. You know, I say I am, and I do, but you are, again, you are experts in your trade. You are the guys and girls who go out there and talk the language of service. And intuitively, I've found a lot of people get it, but it's when they go back to their day job, they kind of get embroiled in the mire again. But our job is to continue to pull them out and go, remember why we're doing this. You know, when I was running an ITSM project, I would pull the project team aside every month, and I'll say, remember that every time one of their mobile phone masts goes down, they potentially lose 25 grand a minute. That's what you need to remember. Okay, it's the outcome for the customer, and then for the business organisation, stay focused. So, I said we're at the dawn of a new era, and it is about the service revolution, and it is towards everything as a service. And here are the things that I want you to do, and I've talked about this. Focus on the service. I'd love to say forget the technology, but you can't. But you know what I mean, right? The conversation needs to be, particularly when you're outside of your own team, please try and elevate that conversation to the business and its service. ideally, that it offers to its customer, and then start evolving that language and teaching people how to speak the language of service. Lead that service revolution. You will need CXO sponsorship and ownership, because these are big things. These are big visions that we need others to buy into in order to give us the backing, in order to give us the resources to go on and help transform some of this stuff. Stay focused on the end-to-end. It has to be a strategic intention of yours to step back and go, no, but actually, this is one part of the process, but how does the end-to-end process hang together? That's what it's all about, because that's the only thing that your customer sees. We have to be willing to learn and adapt. Our world is changing all around us. If you haven't had an opportunity to change your way of thinking over the last 6 to 9 months or so, I think you need to. You need to either get on a course, or you need to go to a seminar, or you need to go to a conference, or you need to read a book, or you need to do something that just challenges you. Just challenge yourself. I dare you. Because it just forces this thing just to get out of its normal way of doing things. You know, we are addicted to our way of thinking. Did you hear that? We are addicted to our way of thinking. And it's hard for anything to shake us out of that. So for somebody who's like-minded like you guys, you've got to push yourself. You've got to get out there, right? You've got to force yourself out of the box, if you like, but you've just got to get your head thinking differently. Could it be? What if that happened? What if we did that? Could we do that? Would that work here? Let me go and talk to somebody. Let me read that. Let me look at a TEDx talk. Let me do something to shake my head out of the normal way of thinking that I fall into every single day, okay? And start now. Start now. You know, do a service review. Just step back from it. Take some time. Use people who have no vested interests, either from a supplier or a service provider or a software provider or somebody internally in your organisation. Just use people as sounding boards to come and actually start helping you think, because they should challenge you. If they're good, they should say, well, why? Why are you doing it? It's the simplest question. You should ask yourself, but you usually don't come up with the right answer, or you come up with one answer and you stop. But the key is to keep asking the why. So what? So what does that actually give to my customer? What does that actually give to me? How's that making my life better? How's that making my customer's life better? Just keep going, okay? And if you want to carry on the dialogue, let's do that. You know, actually this talk was billed kind of part 2 of Everything as a Service. I talked about this part 1 at the ITSMF in November. And if anybody wants a copy of that video or to watch it, drop me a note, because there are a few other things that I talked about as well. Guys, this is a higher level discussion. It needs you to understand and get on board with the vision and go and evangelize. The great thing is, like me, you do it from the perspective of being a real practitioner. You know what it's like on the ground. You've also got good experience of gaining great outcomes. You've got real world experience that other people need to hear, because people listen to those who've been on the journey more than anybody who gets up like me and just preaches at you, okay? You guys have been on the journey. And when you go offering the opportunity for others to see what you've been able to achieve, that's when change starts to happen. And all you need is to recruit a few others, like-minded thinkers, yeah? And then the organisation starts to change. And then you hear things that you said maybe 6 months ago coming back at you and think, oh, that's good. Okay, thank you all.